If you love shoot 'em ups, you should play Spock Goes to Hollywood. And if you love platformers, you should play Gex or the Gecko. But if you're like me, try both and see what Hollywood truly has to offer. What are you making?
It's your congratulatory breakfast.
Congratulations for what?
Well, I read your mail, and I saw you were invited out to Hollywood.
You know that's a federal offense.
Not if it's already open.
Fair.
So you excited?
Yeah, I mean, movies and TV make it look amazing. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for you. Food will be done soon. So when are you leaving?
I just need to pack. My flight leaves tonight.
Yeah, good luck. I heard things get pretty weird over there.
Yeah. Good thing they gave me a map, because I have no idea where I'm going.
Hey, hey! Come over here. Welcome to Cali. You look like a fish out of water.
I knew this was gonna happen.
How about a complimentary picture for this occasion?
Am I gonna get that picture?
Yeah, it'll be 1995.
I thought you said it was complimentary.
This city's gonna eat you alive. What are you listening to right now?
I'm not listening to anything.
Okay, hot or not? Ready?
Okay. Hot. 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 Are we done here?
No, wait. What? I have one more question. English or Spanish? Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop right there. You are our newest talent. Look at you.
Me?
Welcome to Hollywood.
Thank you. What is this about?
Well, I'm an executive at this beautiful network right here. And you have just the right look.
I don't know. This makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Think about it. Your name in lights, host of our newest children's sitcom. Cece, you're gonna be a star.
Oh shoot, I dropped something. Get off my feet! Get off my feet! Oh, great. Another safe place. I'm sure everything will go fine here.
The bugs. The wings flutter. A bittersweet cacophony.
Hollywood's best. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get by.
My brain cells popping like fresh corn. Pop! Pop! Pop!
Wait. Do I know you?
She wears a mixing bowl like a hat. Zap! They're inside your mind too. Zap! 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 Movie magic, but who's casting the spell? Thank you! Chill, girl. I'm headed to Rochella, the hottest party in Cali. You have to go.
I have a prior engagement. I'm actually trying to get to.
Ugh, no spaz. Look, I get it. You're probably into some hipster garbage, and that's cool, that's trendy, but that's not gonna get you anywhere over here. You'll just be another loser.
It's not that. I just have somewhere to be.
Why are you still talking to me? You realize I've been to every single EDM fest on the West Coast? And I've lost hearing in both of my ears. Unless you speak bass, you can keep moving.
Gladly. I don't like the look of this place. Something seems wrong.
Hey kid, come here.
Okay.
What do you think about geckos?
Oh God!
Welcome to the Republic of Gex. We specialize in soul revitalization and regrowth. Much like our lizard brethren, we look to him for our spiritual regeneration.
Actually, I like to keep religion out of my videos.
Bask in the sun. Let its warmth mix with our cold blood and see through our salvation.
Okay, this is getting too weird. I'm just gonna scoot.
Halt. Look, this is just a formality.
What?
I'm just a paid actor. The bigwigs upstairs pay me to face paint like this daily and preach. It's just a tax thing. You know, we put on this big ruse and classify our movement as a religion. Then we all pay virtually zero tax and live off the wealth that we had in the bank for decades. It's a pretty rad gig we've got going on.
Hell yeah, brother. Stick it to the IRS. Seriously though, I got somewhere to be, so I might come back later. It seems like a pretty promising move.
Okay. We should commence our ritual at another time. Gex be with you. There she is, Hollywood's best and brightest. Future queen of the blockbusters, CC.
Sorry, I'm so late, and I have somewhere to be.
Nuh-uh. This is exactly where you should be. Yeah, CC. Star of the fourth movie of my cinematic universe.
Alright, what is it? Are you like some sort of director?
Yeah, very funny. Look, I'll be real with you. Hollywood's in rough shape and the guild needs new blood. And not in the traditional sense. Every week it's like a new group's on strike.
And why does that matter to me?
We used to be the cornerstone of America. We had everything. The major motion pictures, I mean, everyone loved us. Then one day everything changed. Workers started asking for higher wages. I mean, actors, actresses, production crews, even the damn writers.
Don't writers provide the entire story for you guys to just follow when you receive a script?
Now you sound just like them. The point is, Hollywood's a business and we're in decline.
Yeah, I kind of figured if they're reaching out to me.
What happened to the glory days? What happened to the directors and producers doing roughly 1/10 of the work and getting 9/10 of the pay? I mean, now they're flying out YouTubers and influencers. This whole place is going to hell.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Well, I have an important meeting to go to, so I'm gonna...
Okay. Look, I get it. But, what if I told you this? You could have your own spot right here on the Walk of Fame.
I think I'm good. Hi, I'm so sorry I'm late.
Don't be sorry. How's Hollywood been for you?
Well, honestly, it's been rough. I come from a little town far away from here. We don't have characters like you see here. Things are much more traditional.
Yeah, things are different here.
Well, you got me out here. I went through hell to meet you. Can't you at least turn around and face me? You.
Welcome to Hollywood, Cece. Has it been everything you imagined?
No. This place is nothing like you see in the movies. Where's the pizzazz? Where's the culture? Where's the movie magic? It's all gone. Hollywood's dead.
The magic? What if I told you Hollywood is everything you just said and more? People like you don't get it. Movies and television, they're everything. What's real and what's not. How could you possibly know? What if I told you the magic of cinema has been all around you this whole time?
What do you mean?
Go on, reach up on top of your head.
What is this?
The magic of film. Movies haven't been anything but green screens and subpar acting since the early 2000s. And why would they be? When you could be anywhere at any time with the push of a button, all your favorite scenes, they were all made in post.
No, it can't be.
Everything you've seen today and everywhere you've been, it was all me. In elaborate disguises, with camera tricks and top-notch acting.
I knew that homeless guy looked familiar.
Yep, they were all me.
So it's all smoke and mirrors. It's done in post. But it seems so real.
That's right.
But wait, how did you simulate that TV executive touching my toes? The silver screen, the pictures, that's sugar cane that tasted good. That's cinnamon, that's Hollywood. A driving force for American culture and oftentimes a time capsule through period pieces. Filled with some of the most memorable people our world has ever known. Popcorn and candy, the nice seats, a giant screen, and over an hour of storytelling to sink our teeth into. What happened to Hollywood, and will it ever return to its former glory? Today we look at two games that would never exist without the prevalence of film in our society. Two games loaded with movie and TV references and interesting art to accompany them. Gex 64, Enter the Gecko, and Spock Goes to Hollywood. Together, they do Hollywood justice with their copious callbacks and set pieces to historic films, and apart, they provide interesting gameplay and art direction. As with my only other previous Cleric's Blessing, Castlevania, this video will be mostly an overview, then a graded review of each game. The scale used for grading will be the gamer scoring card, and while these games are different in gameplay, their scores will be put against each other in my first head-to-head video. So dim the lights, silence your phones, and try not to spill your drink on the couple in front of you, as we look at Spot and Gex. Fizzy drinks and movie projectors. Blockbusters and shoot-'em-ups. Who knew Hollywood could be saved by a soda pop's cute red circle? Spot Goes to Hollywood was released in November of 1995 for the Mega Drive and Genesis, and the following January for the Sega Saturn, with an updated version releasing November 30th of that year on PlayStation. This video will focus on that version, with all gameplay and cutscenes being from that iteration. Marketed as a platformer, this description wouldn't do the game justice. Nowadays, gameplay would more accurately be identified as an isometric shoot-'em-up with platforming elements, and a unique run-to-the-top right design. After being sucked into the projector at the end of the intro cutscene, Spot finds himself on a moving roll of film, slowly crawling across a vast infinite space. Suddenly, a Jolly Roger begins talking to him, and the first of the 3 main worlds are revealed, which is that of a pirate movie. The film strip comes to an end over top a giant ocean inhabited by a pirate ship, which Spot falls onto, starting the first playable level. Unlike modern games, Spot has virtually no tutorial. While the game does get progressively harder, meaning the player does have some time to learn mechanics, there is no indication of what or how to do anything, leaving players with the only option of figuring it out. In fact, I completed the entirety of Spot Goes to Hollywood without ever knowing that I could sprint. Some of you may be saying, hey, she already sprinted in the gameplay. To which I'd reply, yes. I actually lost all of my gameplay footage and had to do the entire game start to finish again. And before you ask, yes, I had to do the bells again. Thanks, OBS. So what is the objective of Spot Goes to Hollywood? As mentioned previously, Spot moves throughout multiple movies that resemble blockbusters from films past. Throughout each level, there are 5 stars to collect. More on those later. There are also multiple power-ups Spot collects. The F coin changes Spot's shots into a freeze. S coin gives Spot a shield. The 3 coin provides the triple shot power-up. The H coin fills Spot's health bar. The B coin is a deployable bomb that can destroy certain terrain. And the P coin is a power shot. In each world, the main focus is reaching the end of the level door, or finding a hidden shortcut to an additional level. Sunken treasures in the bowels of a pirate ship, abandoned mines in the jungle, a Wild West shootout, a haunted mansion, or even the far reaches of space. This game goes everywhere. But what solidifies this game as worthy of a player's time? Surely there are newer shoot-'em-ups that provide much more solid gameplay. And while I would agree that there are many games in this genre, Spot Goes to Hollywood has its own unique art that is truly something to behold. Every loading screen, every background, every enemy. They are all unique and fit their themes almost perfectly. Green spiky slimes, gophers with dynamite, vast canyons that seem bottomless, tombs filled with spiders, and even a cobblestone clock tower. All of these things culminate in an experience that feels different at every turn. Spot himself helps add to the charm of the game in various ways. Through silly animations or high-pitched squeals, it seems he always has something to say. The developer's choice of giving him an identity without giving too much makes the character not feel annoying, even if things are overdone. Throughout the gameplay, there are vehicles and obstacles that further add to the overall feel of the environments. Tricycling away from dinosaurs, running from statues that have come to life, flying on a broomstick across a monster-filled graveyard, with every step feeling action-packed. All in all, Spot feels like a piece of history, and may even be a relic of good game design that can be studied for future game releases. Moving on to the grading portion of Spot Goes to Hollywood, we start with gameplay, or how it stacks up to the genre. As a hybrid platformer shoot-'em-up, the developers had to balance fun and excitement with difficulty and danger. The isometric view does a lot of heavy lifting in this regard. Every scene is inhabited by various traps and enemies, some of which come sprinting on screen, while others have off-screen projectiles. Traps in each level are theme-specific. Cannonballs and rolling barrels on the ship's deck, blow darts and spears in the jungle temples, statues that spit out sharp objects in the graveyard, or even metal knights slamming axes in the player's way. All of these hazards block progression and help to increase difficulty in a variety of ways. The enemies of Spot Goes to Hollywood also don't feel cheap. Everyone has a unique telegraphed attack or attacks, and with proper practice, can be avoided or neutralized easily by a skilled player. Unfortunately, there's one enemy that can't be avoided. One monster that hides under your bed or in your closet. A thing of nightmares. And that thing is falling. Yes, that's right. The raid boss of platformers. Normally, players can locate their character's position on a flat plane using their shadow. It's pretty much the cornerstone of platform design and is used to aid players in knowing their location. Unfortunately, the cornered isometric design makes certain levels feel incredibly bad, even more so for auto-scrolling levels. Yes, even though this game has brilliant design, the looming problem of its most unique design choice ended up causing more damage than intended. When going for 100% completion, you'll need every star. Every level, even the ones only accessible through hidden shortcuts, have 5 stars to be collected. Each star has a unique way of being revealed to the player. Some are directly in the player's path, some require collecting of spots placed on the map or marked by a blue hue, some require precise platforming and timing, and even those that are acquired after defeating bosses. Collecting every star will take time, but receiving a game over in any level will cause you to have to collect every star again, on top of the fact that if you ever missed even a single star in any level, you must collect all of them again when returning. Furthermore, when entering a level with 0 extra lives, most times it's better to just commit game over, because if you miss a star and reach a checkpoint, you'll have to redo the entire level again anyhow. Speaking of game overs, I'm not personally against this system, but it feels like many times they're unavoidable in this game, given each level's unique gameplay and difficulty. Fortunately, players can access unlocked levels from a level select menu after a game over or at the end of any stage. In scoring Spot Goes to Hollywood's gameplay, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. The game itself is quite amazing, but these problems really cannot be ignored and will cause some players frustration. Next up is art direction, the best part of this game. Every enemy and every environment feels unique and perfect. The different art styles and use of 2-dimensional objects and enemies, placed perfectly to provide a 3-dimensional feel, is superb, and speaks to the artists on the dev team. Spot Goes to Hollywood was tasked with fitting Spot and his enemies into a variety of movie scenes and sets, and this was done excellently. The cutscenes that introduce each area are a welcome break from gameplay and are animated so well for their time. The bosses are the icing on the cake, a difficult fight that is directly linked to the set piece at hand, with minions and traps added to spice things up. The score for art direction is a 9.5 out of 10. In my opinion, it's the selling point of the game and why I'd recommend it to anyone who likes this genre. A must-play if you love hand-drawn enemies and environments or old 3D sprites. Then we come to music and sound, arguably the second best part of Spot Goes to Hollywood. Looks aren't everything. You need the sound department to put in the work to make things feel believable, and they did an excellent job here. The cannons firing in the first area is enough to make players feel like they're in a pirate epic, with swords slashing and water splashing, and even the thunderous barrels crashing back and forth on the top deck. The wailing of ghosts in the halls of the haunted mansion, adding fear in the players as these enemies are hard to defeat. These sounds give life to the aforementioned environments, and provide players with the in-game knowledge on mechanics that might be just out of sight. As for music, the tracks speak for themselves. The menu has a beautiful, triumphant arrangement that gets players in the mood for adventure, and sets the stage for the gameplay that will follow. Honestly, the worst part about recording the gameplay twice is that I have to mute music if possible to overlay later, so I instead play the in-game music alongside my gameplay for full immersion. In scoring the music and sound for Spot Goes to Hollywood, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. A modern remixing and volume adjustment would put this at a perfect score, as long as the sounds were preserved as is. As previously discussed, the environments of Spot are where the game truly shines. Each different movie has various spaces that are never reused. In fact, this is one of the few games where I can confidently say almost none of the assets are repeated outside of each movie, something even modern games with much higher budgets don't do. For me, the best part of each environment is the 3D rendered background. This game's equivalent to a skybox. The background of the canyons gives so much space that you really feel like you're platforming high above the clouds, further adding to the environment. The distance between the player and the farthest point in some of the backgrounds gives perspective on how small Spot is in comparison, and fits to the bigger theme of Spot being a part of something much more grand. The environments come together at a score of 8.5 out of 10, another decent mark for a game that provides so much for the player. With that being said, now I'll contradict myself. The game provides so much, the first time you play it. Yes, now we're moving on to replayability, the bane of most games created pre-2000s. Spot Goes to Hollywood has so much going for it, but unfortunately it has virtually zero replayability outside of searching for every star and seeing the true ending of the game. Maybe back then it was common for people to not finish a game to 100% completion, but nowadays things are different. I personally finished every single thing and felt like I wanted more, just to find out there was no more. Fortunately, there is a pretty interesting cutscene after the true ending that sees a bunch of the devs partying and doing work behind the scenes. This is a reward in and of itself, but with nothing else being unlocked or having no further incentive to play more, I felt like this is where the game was lacking most, especially twice in the same week. Thanks, OBS. In scoring the replayability of Spot Goes to Hollywood, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. If you don't scour every level for every star, there may be a small incentive to return to levels to get the true ending, but I'd wager most players would just replay a level the second they realize they don't have every star. This brings the total score to 39 out of 50 or 78%, a solid score that warrants at least one playthrough. Gex 64, Enter the Gecko. I chose this version because I'd played this one originally, not knowing what fate would have for me in the future. Just know that just like Spot, I 100% of the game, and while I didn't lose my progress this time around, a much worse consequence would await me at the end of my gameplay. I'll explain later why. On a brighter note, what is Gex Enter the Gecko? Gameplay is that of a traditional level-based platformer, dropping players in a hub world with a few levels or channels to choose from. Like Spot, this game is heavily influenced by Hollywood and television. From slasher films to Looney Tunes to even the occasional kung fu romp, Gex casts a wide net on its influences and references to much success. Gex 64's opening is very muted, with a short run-in from our titular character and a title screen drop, followed by a menu that overlays the first area in the game, which at first glance is a very odd choice. Selecting New Game just closes the menu and starts you in the hub world that was behind said menu, without any information and zero clue on where to go. This would be a recurring theme in the game, with a very confusing hub world design and zero indication of direction. However, once the player chooses the first channel they want to enter, they're prompted with a mission select, based loosely on the theme of the chosen level. The goal in all of these missions is to collect the red remote, revealed when the task is complete. Some missions will require players to destroy certain enemies or objects, others may require Gex to reach a certain location, and there are even some that are so obscure it requires players to really explore to find the area required for completion. Additionally, every mission has its own collectibles based on the level themselves, such as carrots in the cartoon level and takeout pagoda boxes in the Kung Fu channel. These level-specific collectibles have multiple tiers. For instance, the horror level contains skulls, and when 30 are collected, they upgrade and require 40 for the next tier, which are tombstones, followed by the final tier, which are hockey masks, requiring 50. Collecting all 120 in any level awards the player with the first of 2 optional silver remotes for the level. The other optional remote is a hidden remote placed randomly in the level, with some of them being quite difficult to find. These latter remotes can virtually double your time in some areas, as you scour every inch of the playable space looking for them. In addition to these collectibles, there are power-ups, in the form of flies that come out of TV sets located within the various maps. When not consumed, each fly acts as a one-hit barrier. When eaten, the red fly leaves a trail of fire. Green gives 1 health point, blue leaves a trail of ice that can freeze enemies, and purple gives Gex an extra life. Collecting red remotes open additional areas in the hub world containing new channels, acting as a progression system and further incentivizes re-entering levels later to complete any missed missions. The aforementioned silver remotes act as keys, opening special bonus channels filled with collectibles and a golden remote as its reward. Golden remotes are the final tier of rewards, and are only acquired after either completing a boss channel in any of the hub world's distinct areas, or completing the optional channel unlocked from collecting all of the silver remotes in an area. These golden remotes are how players unlock the true ending. Or they would. That's right, like I said earlier, I'm playing the Gex 64 version. How does this game differ from the other releases? Well, there are a few changes here and there, some levels removed, an extra 64 specific level. Oh, but also the 2 most important things. The opening cutscene and the true ending cutscene were both removed from the version I played. More on this during the replayability section. Now let's move into the scoring portion of this title. Gameplay for Gex is overall pretty satisfying. Gex's platforming is relatively forgiving. especially in the earlier areas with Gex's Gecko tongue mechanic, which grabs a ledge that you might not have fully reached and pulls players up to safety, allowing players to learn the various mechanics and, by extension, what the core gameplay loop has to offer. Essentially, the game boils down to go into a channel, complete a mission, fight some enemies based on a movie, collect the remote, rinse and repeat. Somehow, this actually doesn't get old. Gex 64 allows you to complete missions in any order. For instance, I may select the mission Survive the Haunted Mansion, but complete Smash the 5 Blood Coolers, and the game doesn't penalize me for it. Instead, selecting a mission only shows a brief clue on what a mission requires, but lets players freely choose how they go about finishing a level in any order they want. This freedom works wonderfully with the overall design of each level and speaks to how well inherent freedom can help platformers. In scoring gameplay of Gex 64, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. As frustrating as some of the levels are, the various enemies and areas to get lost in provide hours of gameplay and entertainment. Then there's art direction, another powerhouse in score for this title. This is why you play Gex. Sure, the platforming is fun, and sure, the item collection is top-notch, but the whole point is the art. Makes sense when the entire game is just a mix of the developer's art and various other media. The scope of the level design is quite astounding. Whether you're fighting ninjas in a dojo or tail-slapping a brown-biting rock, the possibilities are nearly endless. But that's not even the most important part. The most important part is our titular character Gex. Through various one-liners, and there are plenty of them, to fourth wall-breaking looks, there is no question who is the star of the show. Every single level variation has so many repeated lines that it's impossible for them to not get stuck in your head.
Has anyone seen Fox Mulder's sister?
Just like Spot, this game also has so many assets that aren't reused, and even more that are only used for the bonus levels that last under 5 minutes and are collection levels, inhibiting players from really enjoying the areas. Art direction nets Gex 9 points out of 10. With solid maps and interesting locales that are only inhibited by the loss of the previously mentioned missing cutscenes. Music and sound. Something Gex does decently well. Each level has a pretty theme-accurate backing track that further immerses players in the targeted scenes. The enemies all have sounds that allow for practice around abilities, or traps that highlight the player's error when activated. Gex, of course, adds to this with his insightful screams and collision sounds if he bonks into a wall, or potentially grabs a ledge with his tongue. Basically, every action has a sound associated with it, providing much more full gameplay. But there's one sound that ruins everything. In fact, this sound has brought horrors upon the world since as far back as the 17th century. And that sound is the cuckoo from a cuckoo clock. That's correct. One of the most annoying noises is coupled with one of the worst things in gaming. Unfortunately, if the player's camera gets stuck on a wall or edge and is prompted to move by player input, a cuckoo chimes and the camera freaks out. This is the problem with a camera that cannot phase through walls and is indicative of older design. Nowadays, the camera would just pass through said level geometry and not make an idiotic sound that makes you want to close the game and jump off a cliff. In scoring music and sound, I have to give Gex 64 a 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, the cuckoo sound is much too egregious and causes way too much frustration to be overlooked. Gex 64 excels in its environmental design and brings about some of the most diverse landscapes in gaming. A horrifically dark and spooky mansion with eyes that follow you in the paintings on the walls, to the inner workings of a computerverse filled with spark plugs and literal computer bugs, to even the prehistoric enemies littering an active volcano. This game takes you everywhere, all the while leaving you laughing at the various absurdities therein. As for the platforming and geometry in each level, Gex 64 has all of the classics. Giant bowling balls barreling down a hill, twisting underwater caverns that seemingly have no end, as well as aliens, space robots, and asteroids. Gex finds himself challenged at every corner, but players are often left with a feeling of accomplishment after beating some of the game's more difficult areas, some of which, like the clip featured here, literally have no checkpoints and require flawless gameplay. When scoring environments for Gex 64, I'd give it another 9 out of 10. None of the levels, even some of the more difficult ones, left me feeling unfulfilled when completed. It would honestly be a 10 here if the camera could operate correctly as it should. Now how about replayability? Clearly, this game will have more than Spot, right? Well, it definitely has much more content in the game in general. There are 24 total levels, most with multiple missions. So in terms of gameplay, there is relatively a lot of it. However, when you take into consideration the special ending cutscene that was removed in this version, things look pretty bleak. As a kid, I played this game on my family-owned N64, and I never completed it fully. But now I have, just to realize that 100% completion doesn't net literally any rewards. That feels worse than if there had been nothing in the first place. This decision really can't be ignored when reviewing this game as a whole. And if the ending's removal is known to the player, I don't see many people 100%ing everything out of merit alone. Finally, in scoring replayability of Gex 64, I'd have to give it a 5 out of 10. Yes, there is less incentive to complete everything, but I'd guess most people will play the PlayStation version that has these missing parts. And in that case, there would be an argument that the game keeps players coming back, at least until 100% completion. Recently, the Gex Trilogy was announced, a remake which brings the historic trilogy to modern consoles and PC, enter the Gecko included. This doesn't affect this game's score, but may serve to add to replayability down the line. This brings the final score for Gex 64 to 38.5 out of 50, or 77%. Another solid score. But how do these two measure up to each other? This was way closer than I had originally thought, and I actually scored these as I played instead of in hindsight, which makes it more interesting that they were literally half a point apart. When starting, I had originally placed Spot way above Gex, as I had played both of them for the Year 2 preview that I posted on the 1-year anniversary of my channel. However, after fully playing through both games, my opinion of Gex has definitely improved. I will say, replaying Spot did slightly sour my opinion on the replayability of the title, but realistically, no one would 100% that game multiple times in 1 week, so I didn't let it affect the score too much. Each of these titles have done the Hollywood theme justice in their own ways, but I'd argue that the full experience of cinema is only achieved if you play both. Gex is the comedy side of film and TV, with most quips being references and jokes, poking fun at pop culture at every turn. Whereas Spot does the inverse. Spot focuses on the dramatic parts of the industry, with more harsh environments and themes. Spot also takes itself more seriously with very light humor, as Gex essentially hits multiple jokes per minute. Something I couldn't fit into the grading section of this video, but I felt was very important to discuss, was how each of these titles handles difficulty. And I would argue that Spot and Gex have perfect difficulty. For two games with virtually zero character progression, the games are forced to increase difficulty as the player progresses. But without any power creep or new mechanics added, developers must find interesting ways to do this. Spot goes from having slimes that slowly jump the players to a cemetery filled with enemies and flying projectiles at every corner. Both games ramp up their platforming as well, such as Gex's bonus level, where he needs to carefully navigate across a moving stream using various moving boat platforms and twisting columns. Then there's Spot's long jumps and auto-scrolling levels, forcing players to pay attention fully to what comes next while dodging what is right in front of them. The variation of scope and player skill needed ensures a full experience that will keep players entertained. In replaying these games, I felt nostalgic, but not just for these games specifically. It brought about a feeling of sadness that something like Gex and Spot, outside of remakes, wouldn't get greenlit anymore. The art alone in both of these titles is enough to deserve a playthrough. The uniqueness and feel both give is unreplicable. Furthermore, both of these games have an alternate save method that uses passwords, allowing players to keep progress even if they have no memory storage device of each game's original hardware. The worst part of all of this is, when going over the review scores of both games, they were both reviewed poorly over what I would consider only slight annoyances. If you love shoot-'em-ups, you should play Spot Goes to Hollywood, and if you love platformers, you should play Gex Enter the Gecko. But if you're like me, try both and see what Hollywood truly has to offer.